Good morning, everybody. I'm Ray and Mike. Thank you very much, Mary, for the introduction. I'll try not to bore you folks to tears. Hopefully, we're going to show you something maybe you didn't already know. Was that the first? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So we're going to start with some of the oxygen supply systems. Excuse me. So everybody knows room air is 20.9%, but we usually refer to it as 21. Nitrogen is 78%, and trace gases are 1.1. When we provide specific concentrations of oxygen, two processes need to be understood. One is entrainment and one is a reservoir, and I'll get into those in just a little bit. Everyone's familiar with the nasal cannulas. So reservoir is going to be, typically you may have seen this, I don't see these very much anymore, the Pendant nasal cannula, that's the reservoir, the Pendant. And then the oxidizer, looks like a big old mustache. Have y'all seen any of these? You've not seen any of these. Okay. Well, so what the principle is if you just have a regular nasal cannula in, and you inhale, besides the oxygen that you're getting from the nasal cannula, you're also entraining some air. And I'll give you a good example of entrainment here in just a second. But so you're also getting entraining 21%, which means you're diluting the oxygen you're getting out of the nasal cannula. So what the Pendant does, or the oxidizer, it keeps a concentration of O2 right there close, so that when you inhale, you're getting what you inhaled directly plus what's coming out of your reservoir. So you're not diluting it. So you're getting a higher concentration of oxygen when you use these devices. You can follow through in your notebook. You'll see the breakdowns of the O2 with the flows and everything. So this is the example I give to demonstrate entrainment. Okay, so I have a stream of 100% oxygen flying by me right here in front. Okay, and that's 100%. And then all of a sudden, I build a wall, and I put a wall here, and I put a wall here. So my stream is still flying right through that opening. Well, as it's doing that, it's creating a vacuum, and it's getting room air from here and room air from here bleeding into that 100% oxygen. So over here I have 100%. Here I have 100% plus 21 plus 21, which is diluting it. So I may only be giving 70% over here. Does that make sense? Because I'm diluting it down by pulling in 21% room air. That's what entrainment means. And so what I have built here is what's known as a Venturi. And that can be adjusted, which we'll show you here shortly. So the Venturi can be adjusted so I can actually control how much am I entraining, how much am I diluting down to the end result. All right? So does everybody understand that principle? Okay. There's your Pendant, one of the oxidizers that we just showed you. And then, so some of your other basic oxygen providing devices are going to be your simple mask, which basically has the two thumb holes on each side. Okay, and that's going to run your ranges from 5 to 10 liters. You don't want to use any type of mask system less than 5 liters. Reason being, you don't want CO2 building up in that little mask. So 5 or greater is going to keep that flushed out for you. Let's see. Next is going to be your so I'm going to pass this around. This is going to be your partial rebreather. you see this non-rebreather's got the little tabs on the side. So somewhere in the process, a non-rebreather is going to have it on both sides. Your partial rebreather is just going to have it on one side. Go ahead and pass that around. And you're going to flush or wide open your oxygen supply, because what you're trying to achieve is when they inhale, they're not causing the bag to deflate. Okay, you may see a very small fluctuation in the bag, but you want the bag to be staying fully expanded. Here, I'll get it for you. You want the bag to stay fully expanded while the patient has it on. Again, the one rubber tab is going to be your partial rebreather, and a little rubber tab on both sides is going to be your non-rebreather. On your PowerPoint slide, you'll see where your liter flows, 6 to 10 for the partial, and 10 are wide open for the non-rebreather. Okay, I just went ahead and explained to you the Venturi. So typically you're going to see one of these two. Usually when they discharge trach patients from the hospital, you're going to see one like this. Has everybody seen these? Okay. Do you understand how this works? You have 2 liter flows off your concentrator, off the wall, off your cylinder. It's either going to be 3 liters or it's going to be 6 liters. And I'll pass this one around on your side and this one on your side. If you'll look at the numbers on the side, you're going to have 3 FiO2 percents for 3 liters, which is going to be, what, 24, 28, 31, and 35 or something like that. And then on the bottom side, you're going to see you have 3 FiO2s for 6 liter flow. And that's going to be 35, 40, and 50. You notice you can pull that apart. It's spring loaded. What you're holding right there, pull. No, there you go. There. Okay? And so when you pull that, you're going to line up your crow's feet accordingly to the FiO2 you're wanting to achieve. So when you document this, if you have it set at 28%, you make sure you document 28% at 3 liters Venturi. Okay? Make sure you note Venturi. Does all that make sense? Okay. Another system that you may see, let's see, the white one. Look on the end of these, and you're going to see a liter flow and an FiO2. All I got is 5. Nope, I got one more. So y'all see the liter flow and the FiO2? Okay.
I have no idea. I can't see it.
So to achieve that FiO2, you're going to set it at that liter flow. Okay? Now, again, showing you the principle of the Venturi, how that actually works. Let's see the white one. Where'd the white one go? There we go. Nope, wrong one. Here we go. Okay. So remember in my example of the Venturi, I could adjust how much I'm in training by opening or closing that passageway, right? So now, the orange one here is 10 liters, 50%. Look at the difference in the holes. So I'm getting a whole lot more oxygen with this one, and I'm in training less with that one. See the difference? I'm getting more oxygen with that one. All right. Let's see. Everybody understand that principle? And one other thing I want to make sure I explain, because some folks think this is to give a nebulizer treatment. This little cup here, do you know what it's for? And it's not to give a nebulizer treatment. Any idea? No. It serves a purpose. If I didn't have that little cup on there and I was wearing this in the bed and my covers came up and covered it, I'm getting straight oxygen. Right? Because I'm not in training anything. I've got everything covered up. My pillow, my blanket, my whatever. So this is basically a protection device to keep your ports where you're in training from getting stopped up or covered up. So always make sure this is out in the open if you have a patient, a trach patient or whoever. If they're wearing a Venturi that has this, it's not where you give a nebulizer treatment. All right? Okay. Any questions about any of that stuff? All right, let's see. So now we're going to go over the aerosol therapy. I know you folks have seen all this stuff at one point in time or another. So I guess we'll just start at the compressor. So sometimes the doctors will actually write the compression setting that they want. It's kind of a 50-50, depends on the doctor. But anywhere usually between 20 and 30 is adequate. And so the biggest thing that I like to remind folks of is when you're trying to adjust it, on most of them, just turning that dial is not doing anything, and you'll notice that, and don't get frustrated because nothing's happening. You usually have to pull the knob out and then make your adjustment, and then you'll see the pressure dial move as well. Okay, so that's one thing. I have seen numerous folks just sit there, it ain't working. So pull it out and then adjust it, and this pressure manometer is going to indicate where you're at. Again, anywhere between 20 and 30 is typical. Actually, it may or say on that, I go to the next slide. What does it say for the pressure setting? 30?
Yeah, 20 for pressure setting.
Huh?
These are all for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your pressure setting. And then, so the next thing we have here is the neb cap. You'll notice the neb cap has, I'm sorry I keep moving around, but I feel like I'm not catching everybody. This dial up here is actually designed to be used on a system, oxygen system in the hospital, and is used as a Venturi to control the amount of FiO2 we're trying to give that patient, okay? That's typically what this is used for, in a hospital setting. In this setting, we're actually using it to control the amount of humidity we're providing the patient. So what you see on your chart in there, this is typically going to be set at, is it 70?
Right, well, depending.
70%?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got it set at 70. And again, we're actually controlling the amount of humidity we're giving this patient. So if you have it set up properly and the patient has a lot of secretions and you're having to suction them a multitude of times, during a shift or a day, then maybe we're giving them too much. Normally a 1,000 ml bottle is going to run you about a day and a half normally, for a normal patient. So if I'm giving them too much humidity, I may want to cut this back to, say, go from 70 to 50 or 70 to 30. And what happens then is I've got more air coming in and a little less humidity going to the patient, okay? Because, technically we can drown the patient. We can be giving them way more than what they need, okay? So does everybody understand the principle of the Venturi on the compressor? Okay. The next thing in the circuit is going to be our drain bag. The The idea is to have the drain bag at the lowest point between the device and the patient so that any rain out is going to end up in the bag. Now, I've gone into patients' rooms, and true, it does keep it under control and out of the way, but I've seen it hooked to the handrail above the patient's head. And then we can't figure out why his SAT won't come up. We go in there and we hear gurgling like he's underwater scuba diving. That's because none of the water made it to the bag. It's all still here in the hose because we've not got it strategically placed. Okay, so the bag always needs to be at the lowest point. Next in line is going to be this is a fitting all its own. O2 bleed-in fitting. Okay, and so this is how we're going to provide the patient oxygen. Remember, that compressor over there, this only gives air. So this doesn't have anything to do with his oxygen level, okay? That's only air. So we're going to make sure, and you can actually put this in line either here nearest the patient, or most folks will put it back here and let it bleed in, but anywhere in line. The only difference is you may want to have an oxygen analyzer to see actually what you're putting out at the end, because remember, you are entraining air in addition to controlling the humidity with this. Okay, and the next is going to be the trach collar. Your concentrator is going to be on whatever flow or FiO2 that the physician's order is for. Again, sometimes at night you may have to crank them up 1 liter or something. Just depends. Until you get used to the patient, monitor them on a regular basis until you find out how they're going to respond to oxygen and this humidity both during the day or at night. Any questions about this setup? Everybody understands it? Something, and I know from experience because I've had calls at wee hours in the morning, a patient come back, and a lot of third shift or late night nurses aren't real familiar with setting this stuff up because it usually happens on day shift when the patients come in or whatever. I've had to remind them at 1:30 in the morning that they've got another patient on another hall with the same setup. Just walk down there and take a look, and I wouldn't have had to get up at 1:30 in the morning. But that's beside the point. I'm just reminding you, you may already have one in the house, and always use that as a reference. So any questions about this one? No, we're good on that setup.
Now just to add to what Ray just shared with you, we've given you a guide here so that if you're unfamiliar with the setup, you can follow this guide to actually set up correctly. And if you've noticed in the chart, we've actually analyzed with each of these FiO2 orders what you need to set your bulk neb on and your concentrator to achieve approximately the FiO2 that's been ordered. So again, if you've ordered, have an FiO2 order for 30%, you notice that your concentrator on 2 liters, and your compressor on 20 psi, and your bulk neb on 70 to achieve that 30% FiO2 requirement. So everybody understand that? So again, the cheat sheet will help you in the middle of the night or if you're unsure. Also keep in mind, your trach patients will not come in with a flow, a liter per minute order. You need an FiO2 order. Those, because in the hospital they'll tell you, patients on 10 liters per minute, 10 liters per minute is meaningless. What's the FiO2 requirement? Because again, 10 liters here per minute would be, again, 60%. So again, we need to make sure that we can meet that 60% requirement in the facility, right? So again, what are you going to need for that here? A 10 liter concentrator, right, to meet that. That can work off your 5 liter concentrator. So always remember, trach patient with this setup, you need to make sure you have this chart in front of you, and make sure the order you get for the chart from the hospital for the physician is an FiO2 order, a percentage order, not a liter per minute order. And this setup can be used on really two types of patients. One, your trach patient, and secondly, your patient with thick viscous secretions, where you need extra humidity to liquefy the secretions, make it easier for him to actually cough and get rid of. Okay, Ray, I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. High pressure cylinders, your E and H cylinders, you just use the little ones, and have all of them got the handle with the built-in regulators, probably? What kind do you use here? You don't know? Cylinders? You guys use cylinders here? Okay. Do they have the built-in regulator, or do you actually have to put the regulator on it? Yes, which?
We have to put the regulator on.
You have to put the regulator on it. Okay, cool. So then what your first process is going to be removing that little rubber seal. And when you do, it's going to have a washer attached to it. And you're going to have your regulator. Your regulator is going to have 2 pins in it that are designed to match the pins on the head of the cylinder. That little washer's got to be in there, and it has to be in there correctly. I'm sure you folks have been down that road before. The washer's not been right. You go to, well, I'm sorry, before we get the regulator on there, you're going to do what we call crack the cylinder. And it's just a case of after you've removed the little plastic piece and the washer, you're going to point the direction of the outlet away from you, and you're just going to say cracking the cylinder, and you're just going to pop it. That's going to make sure that valve is blown clean. Okay, and then you're going to line up your pins off your regulator, and your washer is going to be in place, and sometimes those can be extremely tricky, but you make sure they're in place. If they're not in place, again, you're going to have a leak once you turn that thing on, and sometimes it's a challenge. But and then you will tighten up, open, and then just set your flow accordingly to what you need. Let's see, concentrators. Let's see, functions. So basically what it's doing is filtering nitrogen out of the air that it's in training or bringing in from the back. You want to make sure that filter stays clean. Typically, whoever your provider is, your DME provider, is going to watch all that stuff, but you need to be aware of that as well, that those filters need to be clean. Let's see. Oxygen. It is a drug, so make sure you have a order in place for the FiO2 or the liter flow that you're trying to maintain. So typically what we try to do with trach patients especially, because they inevitably their SAT will drop. A lot of patients will, but trach patients for sure, their SAT's going to drop at night. And so we will usually try to request a SAT order that's a range, not be restricted to 2 liters. And you have to turn them up to 4, because then you're not following the order. We would rather have an order that says maintain SAT greater than 95%. That way if I need 2 liters, I can do 2. If I need 4, I can do 4. So always, if you can get the doctor to go that way for you, that's what you would prefer to have. Let's see, oxygen is not explosive. It's just that it feeds fire by providing it with oxygen to burn. A fire has to have oxygen to burn.